Welcome to our first sit of 2025. Nice to see you all. Every once in a while people are like, who are you again? So just in case, my name is Michael Taft, and we're going to do a guided meditation for an hour. And during that guided meditation, I will offer some suggestions about things you might want to do with your mind. And you can either follow it or not, and just make it work for you. In general, however, it would be nice for the group if you basically stayed pretty still and didn't make a whole ton of noise. Other than that, after we're done, if something has come up for you, you want to talk about, or you have a question, or you just want to report, or whatever, we'll bring the microphone around and you can say what you want to say, and I will respond in some way or another. And then at the very end we'll do a little, then there'll be announcements, and then at the very end we'll do a little brief silent meditation. Just a little chaser there, a little meditation chaser at the very end. So that's the program for the evening. Let's begin with a little bit of movement, just seated movement, beginning with like these ones. Just breathe in and stretch as far as feels comfortable for you, and then breathe out. Do a couple of these, again, always with body stuff. Do whatever feels good to you. And then being careful not to, slam into your neighbor. Go this way, opening up those side ribs, breathing. We'll just hold this one instead of doing it repeatedly. But feel the breath really coming into the expanded part of your chest. And go back the other way. Stay here for just a minute. And then breathe in. Okay. Then forward, all the way as far as you feel like. Maybe even down to the ground. I like to slightly move back and forth here to stretch both sides. And if you're in a chair, of course, make this work for you. And then coming back up. Breathing nice and deep. Then, in this one, again, make it work for you. Let's do a twist. So, sitting up as straight as you can, just let your spine kind of twist there, and then go the other way. Okay, and bring it to the center, and then just do crazy movement. Whatever needs to get shaken out, shake it out, or make circles, or just do whatever. Doesn't have to be what I'm doing, shouldn't be what I'm doing. Don't forget to do a nice lion pose, like usually feels pretty good. Okay, and then lastly, let's do like the 3-part breath. So breathing into the top of your lungs, and then the middle of your lungs, and then all the way in the belly. So you get all 3 parts of making sure they're expanding, and then breathing out like that in the reverse order. Let's do a couple of those. For some reason I always do the breath in reverse. I fill the belly first and then go up from there, but you do you. Okay, very good. Then I would like us to, let's do, we're going to do two different mantras. We're going to do Om Mani Padme Hum for a while, and then you'll hear me, I'll switch, and we'll just do Hum, just the Hum part. So for a while we'll do Om Mani Padme Hum. Remember, you can breathe at any part, not just at the end of the mantra, because we'll just keep going without a break there. You just breathe whenever you want to breathe. And it sounds better that way also. And I'm at a certain pitch, but you don't have to be at that pitch. So having it be at different ranges, whatever is comfortable for you. The point is to surrender into the energy of the sound, right? These are powerful mantras, and so you just let go from a place of real openness, a place of real spaciousness, a place of real relaxation and ease, and just notice the power of the vibration, the power of the mantra moving through space. So let's begin. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Mani Padme Hum, Om 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 Mani Padme Hum, Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, Om 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 Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, Om 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 Mani Padme Hum, Padme Hum, Om Mani 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 Padme Hum, Hum, just the hum, just the just keep going with whom. the mantra of great compassion, followed by a mantra that dispels all delusion, the seed syllable that dispels all delusion. And just sit in wide open, wide awakeness, mind like the sky, uninvolved with any thought of any kind, and simply rest in that energy for a few moments. Good. Now let's do some alternate nostril breathing. If you know what that is, just go ahead and start. If you don't know what it is, I'll show you. You're going to breathe in one side and out the other, so put your right thumb covering your right nostril. Breathe in your left nostril. Then close that left nostril and breathe out the right. Then breathe in the right, out the left. And just continue doing that. This is a kind of bi-hemispheric stimulation. It's very powerful for getting real, both energized and also balanced and even. Make sure you're sitting up straight. And we're just going to do this for a couple minutes, so your arm will maybe feel weird, but that's okay. If you want to, you can do the seed syllable hum, focusing on the brow center. So we started on a left nostril in-breath, so make sure you go around till you're doing a left nostril out-breath, and then feel free to end there. Good. Now, remaining completely outside the thinking mind, simply rest in wide awake, wide openness, just the natural expanse of awakeness. And feel the coming and going of the breath wave within that space. It's naturally vast space when we're not caught in our thinking mind. Our awareness is very broad, very open, very free. And just in there without trying to narrow down or tighten up or, drill down into it or anything. Just notice the very pleasant coming and going of the breath wave. Okay, so let's sit with that for a while. If you want more support, you can do the seed syllable hum for each breath, just to give you a little bit something more to hang on to. If, on the other hand, you're pretty comfortable resting in the openness, then just let the breath be a very, very, very mild background support. So let's sit like that quietly for a while. One hint, don't get in any kind of a fight with your thinking mind. We're not trying to stop it or make it go away. We're just not paying attention to it. We're sitting outside it or near it or something. And just letting it do its thing, but not giving it attention. Rather, attention is on this open field of awareness and the coming and going of the breath wave, which feels very pleasant. Again, if you find yourself caught up in the machinations of thought, just let go of it. Don't worry about it. Come back to just being open. Resting as presence itself. When we're not distracted into thinking, we are utterly present. Without any effort, because presence is what we are. now, without changing the breath in any way. See if you can notice the energy behind the breath. The breath is like a wave of activity, and there's sort of the sense of, I'll just call it energy, that seems to move that wave, seems to propel that wave. And just notice that if you can. If not, just stay with the wave itself. It's not something we're trying to imagine or visualize. It's just something either you can feel if you can feel it. Remaining easily outside of thought, not struggling, not trying to create anything, just being with wide openness and noticing this activity or energy of breathing. And then notice the space and stillness underneath that energy, underneath that movement, underneath that vibration. There's just space and stillness within the breath. Total stillness within the breath. Rest in that stillness, which is spacious and awake, inside the breath wave itself. If for some reason that's intense, you can just come back to sitting and breathing. Isn't it interesting that within the movement of the breath, there's absolute stillness and vast space? Rest has that stillness and space, which is wide awake, very clear. instead of imagining that you're looking at that stillness from someplace outside it, be the stillness within the breath. Just be it. Again, don't do that in your imagination. Just come from there. And notice this spacious stillness within the breath is not separate in any way from the vast, wide awake, wide openness everywhere. Be the stillness. And notice that the stillness within the breath, the space, is not separate in any way from the movement or energy of the breath. The stillness and the movement co-arise. Very good. Now you can stay with that Or as usual, we'll move from here to something quite a bit more challenging, which is the activity of thought. If that's too challenging for you, then just stay with the breath. Otherwise, the idea is to rest as open space, wide awake, wide openness. But instead of noticing the breath wave, you're noticing the bubbling energy of thought. And just letting that come and go while remaining open like the sky. Completely uninvolved with the content of the thinking, but utterly aware of its energy, of its activity. Unlike the breath, it's not usually a rhythmic wave. It's more like bubbling stew or something. If you over and over and over again get caught in the thoughts, then you might want to go back to the breath. Otherwise, just rest as open space, noticing this bubbling stew of the thinking energy. But we're not tasting it. We're not getting involved. We're not tasting the stew. We're just watching it bubble. Doing this for a little while, it becomes obvious, in case it wasn't before, that you are not your thoughts. They're just happening. And here you are, just observing them happening without being them. Notice how they just keep happening. Again, don't focus narrowly here. Stay really wide open while just aware of this energy of thought. And notice how relaxing it is to simply rest as awakeness and let the thought activity, the thought energy just bubble along without having to really engage with it. It's just like breathing or your heart beating or your guts digesting or whatever. It just sits there and thinks. It doesn't have to mean anything. And just like we can observe the breath wave, we can just watch the bubbling fountain of thought just bubble away. Totally relaxed, totally open, utterly at ease. Wide awake. Now, what's underneath or inside the bubbling thought? Stillness and space. Right inside the bubbling energy and activity of thinking, perfect stillness, tremendous space. Again, we're not imagining this or picturing it or somehow trying to conjure it, just notice it. Right at the center of every pinwheel of thought is a still point, utterly still, tremendously spacious, wide awake. Just rest as the spacious and stillness, spaciousness and stillness inside each thought, inside the thought energy. Not looking at it from the outside, but being it from within. Wide awake, vast stillness. Good. Now notice that this vast stillness is not separate from the movement or energy or activity of thought. They co-arise. It's not like the thought is really happening against the background of stillness or something. The thought activity, the thought movement, and the stillness are two sides of the same thing. They arise together. Rest as that. Good. Now you can either stay with that or stay with the breath, or notice that this vast, spacious, awake stillness is everywhere. You don't have to imagine it, you don't have to generate it, just notice. And then just let that be aware of itself. It's just aware of itself. And just reflects itself. Good. Now that's the spaciousness and the stillness that's everywhere. So what is the energy or the activity that co-arises with that? When we looked at the breath, there was the breath movement, the energy, the activity, and the spaciousness and stillness that co-arose with it. Same thing with thoughts, thought energy, the thought movement, the thought activity, and the stillness and space that co-arose with it. Here we've got the stillness and spaciousness and awakeness everywhere. What's the activity? What's the activity? It's the whole world, right? It's self and world, it's everything. Everything, every sight, every sound, everything. arises from that, within that, as an expression of that. Within all this activity of everything happening, including our thoughts, including our movements, including our emotions, and including everything, there is tremendous space and stillness and awakeness. Good. Now from this spaciousness and awakeness and stillness, let's let the activity of this seed syllable chanting arise again, but without any sense of a doer at all. No one's doing it. The space itself, the energy itself, it's just arising out of space and coming forth by day as hum, syllable hum. cosmos and the energy together, never separate. Okay, let's end that there. Just thinking about or noticing or being with the idea or the experience that, everything that's appearing to our experience, whether it's a visual appearance or auditory experience or thought experience or any other kind of experience, is arising within or against the backdrop of, but really never separate from just this perfect awake space. And that, in one way of looking at it, the awake space itself groundless though it is, gives birth to every experience. Unborn though it is, it gives birth to every experience, and all experience falls back into it over and over again. And what we tend to focus on is us being in the experience and then looking at all the parts of the experience, and we get real involved in that. But it's not far away, it's not a hard thing, it's just we're so involved in the carnival and watching the carnival that we forget to just notice that even the thing that thinks it's doing that is just more appearance. Right? It's the thoughts and the feelings and the body sensations and emotions, that's all just more of the appearance. But what's underneath that or behind that or saturating that or giving that a place to happen is this awake stillness, awake space itself that is tremendously clear and bright and primordial. Again, it's not a thing, you can't touch it or make it into an object because it's beneath all that. It's more fundamental than all that. But all experience comes out of that. And in a very direct way of knowing it, you are much more that than any part of the experience. Or to put it differently, if you are any part of the experience, you're all the experience. Not just these particular thoughts and feelings, but all the stuff. Because it's all arising out of that source, out of that primordial egg of potentiality from which it's never separate. So it's just a matter of noticing. Because we just get, where someone waves the thing and we go, ooh, shiny, and we look at that and we forget what's looking. And if someone asks what's looking, very often we'll say, well, me, my thoughts and feelings, I'm what's looking, but that's just still part of the appearance. What's noticing that? What's noticing the thoughts and feelings? That's starting to go more towards this primordial awakeness. Okay, so as I promised, we'll hand around a microphone. I don't know if someone wants to do that. You want to do that? Great. And basically, if you feel like talking, raise your hand. You can ask a question, you can give a report, you can intensely critique what I'm saying, whatever you want. But just remember, it's going live to the internet and will be up forever for all, it's going to eventually find its way to other galaxies and so on. And there will be you saying that. And also that everyone just had kind of a, let's say, deep experience or some kind of experience and might be a little wide open. So, just be aware of that as we share. Okay? So what's bubbling up from the fountain of thought out there? Or has everyone dissolved into the primordial soup? And I just see these cilia waving from the pond.
Okay, that was very powerful. I don't find that I connect with chanting so much, so I guess it's a meta question. If there are practices that don't seem to move the needle for us but are supposedly very powerful, is it worth continuing to invest in them or to put your attention elsewhere?
It just depends, because there might be a whole range that you don't really get into at first, but after you do it more, you start to. But others, they kind of never do. So you just got to sort of follow your intuition there. The main thing is it's a very non-mental practice, and so you got to be able to drop out of your thoughts and just ride the energy of it. Okay, and it helps if there's a heart aspect to it. If you're opening up from the heart while chanting, it starts to get the energy of it becomes very clear. Right. So if you're just kind of like, well, these are just sounds, it's never going to work. But if there's some kind of, the vibe, the feeling, the love, the whatever, the devotion is arising, then it starts to really move the needle, as you said. Okay, so not every practice is for everyone. Okay, thanks, Sherry. Who else? Anything else? Are you raising your hand?
At one point in the meditation, my field of vision softened so much that the room sort of almost looked infrared.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. That hasn't happened before. And then I had this image of everyone in the room being connected to one another with these cords of love, and it was so beautiful. We were all somehow meditating more intensely, being in this room together, so just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It is the case that meditating together is much more powerful than meditating alone. And that, I see a lot of people in here who are just on a long retreat and stuff. There's a lot of energy, and it can help, kind of like the rising tide lifts all the boats. And sometimes there's a sense that, really though, we're supposed to kind of, if we were hardcore, we'd go off and do our cave retreat by ourselves or whatever. But actually all the oldest mantras and stuff are, especially in the Vedas, they're all in the we verb form, right? So they're sitting around doing all that together all the time, because there's something about doing it as a group that does exactly what you're saying. It's like connection with cords of light, and it really, it's beautiful. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
thanks. I never tried to be the thought before. That was really powerful. I used to think of thought sort of like either as the fountain you're talking about or something immaterial but wispy. But there was nothing. And when you said like be the thought, that I think that's the most spacious I've ever been. And then I had a thought like, can I look back and see who's thinking this? There was nothing there.
Yeah. So if I can inquire, and of course this is a very leading question, when you say nothing, is it nothing?
It just looked the same, humongous.
Yeah. I mean, what we tend to find there is this spacious awakeness, but it's not a thing. There's nobody there, there's no object there, but it's not literally a blank deadness, but rather spacious awakeness. But I don't want to fill that in and say that was your experience.
Yeah. The alive or dead thing is really hard to say, except that I had a song in my head at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So somebody was entertaining somebody.
And the whole world was here at the same time too, right? So the fact that when we look back you can't find a thing, which we can call, there's nothing there, right? There's nothing there. Somehow there's still an experience happening. So it's not nothing like dead blankness. There's a world. And that is super important to notice that we tend to imagine that we're this meat object at the center of all that, but when you really look at the center, there's not a meat object there.
Thanks a lot.
Other stuff? Come on, meat objects. The next part of the program is announcements to be done by Alana. Alana, are you watching? Let's see if she comes ready. Yep. You're
It's looking at me.
and laughing.
That's okay, you can look at me and laugh. If I can look at you and laugh. Ooh. Lovely to see all of you. I hope you've had an insightful and awakening sit. I just wanted to let you know about some events we have coming up. We have several more opportunities to sit here this month. This weekend we have David Chapman and Charlie Aubrey here on Saturday night, and they're going to do an event. It's like a conversational event about Vajrayana, about contemporary Vajrayana practice. They've been kind of on a mission to sort of reinvent Buddhist Tantra for a contemporary audience. And if you're familiar with David Chapman's work, he wrote Meaningness. He writes the blog Meaningness, Meta-rationality, Vividness, Buddhism for vampires. So if you've ever encountered any of that work online, you should really consider coming to this event because they're going to be here for 3 hours on Saturday, having a conversation about modern Vajrayana. And then on Sunday, Charlie Aubrey is teaching a day-long retreat on introduction to contemporary Vajrayana practice. So some of that conversation from the night before will probably carry its way through the day. They're separate events, so you don't have to go to both of them. You can just choose one if you want to.
But you should go to both.
And some of the some of the practices that Charlie's going to be teaching are like an open awareness practice, a yidam practice with Avalokiteshvara. That's like a deity yoga practice, meditation practice, and then some Dzogchen with like sort of sky realm practice. So it's going to be really cool, and I recommend that. That's this coming Sunday. And then the weekend of the 25th and the 26th, January 25th and 26th, Tina Rasmussen is coming and is going to teach a 2-day retreat. So like full 2 days of sitting and practice and learning. And that retreat is called What is Awakening? And if any of you have ever asked that question, I recommend coming and checking it out because there's going to be a lot of conversation about what it is. And then and she's going to be introducing 4 practices that support awakening what I imagine is like a pretty practical way. And so I don't know exactly what those 4 practices will be, but if you come, you can find out. She's going to also be kind of talking about how awakening is viewed across different meditation traditions, and doing something called tuning into the flame of awakening in yourself. So kind of finding something that's going to be, I think, a driving force behind what kind of leads you along the path here. So that's what I got for you. There's a lot of opportunities to sit this month, and I hope that you will come out to all or one or whatever floats your boat. But I'd love to see you there. Do you have anything else you'd like to announce?
Thanks, Alana. Just that David Chapman and Charlie Aubrey are doing amazing work in the field of Vajrayana sort of adaptation and recreation. They're awesome human beings. I really recommend it. And of course, Tina Rasmussen is famous for being the first female practitioner in the West to kind of ace the Pao Auk Sayadaw meditation method, which is this extremely hardcore meditation stuff. She actually knows what she's talking about. And so when we're saying you can come and sit with her for 2 days, that would really, if you're interested in really the deeper end of this, that would be worth doing. So they're great. These are wonderful programs.
Yeah, and Charlie and David are visiting, so they're not local, so this doesn't happen that often. So yeah, that's what I've got coming up. And please feel free to stay, hang out, have tea in the lobby or in the lounge, make friends, talk about meditation. Feel free to donate if you haven't done so already or want to do more of that. And we hope to see you here again soon.
Thanks, Alana. Yeah, on the donation tip, remember, the Alembic is a nonprofit, and we let anyone come to the meditations just because we want to teach meditation. We want people to meditate. We want the community to come together. So there's, no charge. But if you, for whatever reason, want to donate, we would really, really appreciate that. It's very, very helpful to keep the space open and the lights on and the heat on. And wonderful staff like Alana here doing their thing so perfectly. So please consider donating to the cause if that's something that moves you. Okay, as promised, the last part here tonight is just some silent meditation. You don't have to hear me saying weird shit. We're just gonna be quiet. And sit together for another hour. Great, thanks for coming out to meditate, everybody. It's a pleasure to sit with you. Remember that you can hang out in the lobby for a while and have some tea and snacks and talk to other folks. And we'll be back here same time next week. So see you there. Thank you, Tyson.